So you ready for this one? Today's guest on the Rise to the Top podcast has not one, but two online courses and online course brands, we'll call them, that are making over $5 million a year. Not one, but two, making over $5 million a year. It's crazy sauce. Let's talk about it. Let's dissect it. Let's get way into it. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Coming up right now on the Rise to the Top podcast. And welcome, my friends, to the Rise to the Top podcast. It's your great and good friend, David Pejman Ghadimi, a.k.a. DSG. And very excited for today's conversation with Pejman Ghadimi, now a.k.a. PJ, who's going to be coming on here in just a few minutes. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of context about why I'm chatting with PJ here on the show today. Now, first of all, I don't know PJ. We actually just met when I reached out for this interview, but I have seen his work now for years online. We've kind of been two ships, if you will, passing in the night, whatever the heck you want to call it. I don't know what kind of analogy that is, but all right, let's just go with it. But, several years ago, and I can't remember how, why, when, where, whatever it might be, but I somehow ended up on his website that I found really interesting called exoticcarhacks.com. And immediately I was just kind of fascinated about what he was doing. I saw this really interesting online course that he built and this brand, and that's why I mentioned brand in the intro here, because anyone knows here that an online course is more than a course. It's really a brand. When you create a premium, really cool product and program that you can put out there and teach people to get results, I mean, it's really much more than a course. It's a brand because there's other things that go along with it, free content and things like that as well. But anyway, be that as it may, I found him to be fascinating when I was looking through this, what he'd been doing, how his marketing worked, the different brands that he created. And I just knew I had to get him on the show. And it's funny because once you go to his website, exoticcarhacks.com, you're going to get retargeted like a boss, which I love, right? He's got some cool stuff going on. So I invited PJ to come here on the show today for a real candid conversation to find out all about his brand and business and how long he's been in business and why he does online courses and how he does it differently than other people and how he goes about pricing and marketing and helping students get results and all the things that you would possibly want to know from someone that's been this successful with it. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation. You're really going to enjoy this one. Here we go. Let's get at it. All right, so now I'm going to be joined by Pejman, who also likes to go by PJ, makes it a little easier as well. Welcome to the Rise to the Top. How are you?
Good, man. I appreciate you having me on, buddy.
I'm super excited for this. What's interesting about this is, I was just saying before I started recording, is that I've been following you for a couple years, and I think I've been retargeted by you, for the rest of my life, which is cool. That you keep coming up in my Facebook news feed, which I love seeing. And I figured, this would be really interesting. We've never actually chatted before. So having you on the show, a lot of guests that come on this podcast are people that I've known for years and years and years. But I love bringing on someone. It's like a weird first date here. So thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, man.
So let's talk a little bit, just to give context for people. Now, I know you're a serial entrepreneur. You've done a lot of different things, but we're here to kind of talk about the course side of your business. So how long have you been doing online courses?
Courses for about 6 years, but I've been in the online space for about 10 total, like a little bit over 10, starting with Secret Entourage being my first platform that launched in 2008, like late 07, early 08. And then since then, I've launched about 12 books, 2 bestsellers out of those 12. And then I've also launched 2 other courses, which are fairly well known, Exotic Car Hacks and Watch Conspiracy. That's on the course side only, not like businesses.
Right. And you have got all kinds of other stuff as well. What are your other businesses?
So I own VIP Motoring, which since 2005 was the world's first alternative asset investment fund that allowed people to invest in exotic cars, watches, art, and other alternative luxury assets. That's my bread and butter for quite a while. And then outside of that, I own Secret Consulting, a company that focuses on IT management and really more like leadership consulting for a lot of large corporations that don't want to know they're hiring a consultant. And then outside of that company, I also own a completely separate entity that is really like more like a jewelry shop / watch trading.
I love it. This is great. I mean, you the definition of serial entrepreneur here. I love it. So you got a whole variety of different things. And where we're going to focus today on the show, because we've got a lot of course creators, obviously listening, aspiring course creators, is really the course side of your business. But it's always great to know kind of the context of all the different things that you have going on, which is super cool. So let's go back 6 years ago here when you had, well, first of all, you had Secret Entourage. So Secret Entourage was your online platform. Tell us a little bit about what Secret Entourage is all about.
Yeah, so years ago, I mean, before I started Secret, I was fairly successful at my, real big business, VIP Motoring. I really loved it. Made me a lot of money, like a lot of money. And then one day I woke up and I was like, what do I want to be known for? Is it just having made a lot of money? And so I realized that one of my biggest talents throughout the years was really focusing on teaching and coaching people and bringing people to their best potential. And I was doing it, but only for a couple of hundred people a year, which were my employees, my friends, and everything else. And I wasn't doing it for money. So I thought, well, if I really want to impact people, I just got to do it to more people. It's not a question of money or not. I just got to figure out a way to impact more people. So I started writing my thoughts in a blog, nothing fancy, just kind of doing some basic articles and just staying consistent with it. Every day I'd write an article and I'd just move forward. I didn't really care about analytics, who was reading it. I didn't understand anything about IT. I just knew that I just wanted to write to help people. And so I wrote, didn't even pay attention to who was reading. And then a year or so later, some of the people that were reading reached out to me and they were like, wow, I really love the stuff you're writing, but I think your site looks like crap. I'm like, well, I'm sure it does. It looks awful. And one of them was like, well, I'm a designer. Can I help with it? And I said, sure. Like, why don't you design it? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it for free. I love reading. And I said, okay. So he joined up, and then I had another marketer who was like, I really like the content. I'd like to help with putting some ads and this and that. I said, sure. So, it was more of a passion project anyways. I wasn't really expecting to make any money off of it. So I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. Let's just go ahead and do that. And so over time, we realized like, wow, we have a pretty good readership and there is a good amount of people who are interested. And now the site is getting too big to be free, meaning there's got to be some kind of angle that we can use to let the site at least pay for itself. And so we came up with this idea of having books. Like I'll just compile some of these articles into books about some of these different topics, write the excess about it, and then just publish a book. And maybe if we sell an ebook or something, we can make some revenue. And so we started, first year made, after like our third year in business, we made 40,000 that following year. So it was great. It was better than nothing. It paid for the site. And then the following year, we started thinking about what else can we do outside of, just books. And we came up with kind of an online membership basis for Secret Entourage, which gave people access to the video version of all of these articles and interviews. And so the video version became like $200 like membership fee, one-time lifetime fee. And our business from there kind of completely changed. It went from 40,000 to 150,000 to over $1 million.
Wow.
So
wow, that's crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah. And at the time, we were probably, podcasting wasn't that exciting, wasn't that out there. And I never did a podcast, but I was the only one that was really doing anything that was remotely similar to what I was doing. And so, it kind of worked, and I figured out the model on how it works. And so I turned my books into courses, and from there we turned it into a $4 million company on the baseline of just selling courses, books, and of course memberships.
I love it. I mean, I appreciate the broad strokes there too. And learning about kind of how this happened over time was very organic and how that happened. Now, let's talk about let's talk about exotic car hacks and watch conspiracy here. So by definition, I mean, you would call those both courses, right? I mean, do you have another term for that, or is that what do you like to call them?
They're platforms more than courses, right? Because a course would be something that's similar to like just you consume content and it's within the confines of what it is, and that's it. And you move on. I feel that with both of these, I mean, they started in very, very organic ways too. Originally, Secret Entourage was never built to make money. Like, it was built as a passion project. So my focus was never, let me learn funnels, let me learn marketing, let me drive the most ROI, and all of these things. I originally thought if I can survive, great. If I can make it my life purpose, even better. And if it can make money later, then wow, like I really hit a home run. But Watch Conspiracy and Exotic Car Hacks were very different, because to me, those were not really about passion projects or next wave of helping people. It was more about listen, I have this unique knowledge, and if you want it, it's going to only benefit your life, so you're going to pay me for it. So my viewpoint from the very beginning was like, the world's not in a better place if everybody drives Ferraris. So if you want to learn how to drive a Ferrari, you're going to call me and you're going to pay me to do that and help you. So I systemized in a way what I was doing at the concierge service, because we were doing this for extremely wealthy individuals that had at least 10 million in cash assets. And we figured there's normal people who want to learn how to do this. So we'll make something like a do-it-yourself at home kind of model. And so originally it was only a course, which was a very short 3-hour course that was available on Udemy that I had put on there. And, it got some feedback. But then the best part about it is that it suddenly started picking up. And what I mean by that is it just got like really big when so many people were jumping on Udemy. And I was like, wow, like people really like this stuff and they're providing really good feedback. And learning all I had learned at Secret Entourage, all of the, like difficult things we had gone through, all the understanding how to convert people and all of these things that over the last, 4 years, I had mastered through that process. Then I decided, well, let's just redo Secret and, in a completely new light. Let's build a platform around watches and a platform around cars, because we now have all the materials we need and we have a course. And so instead of just re-releasing the same course and doing what most marketers do, which is just recycling the content, I didn't do that. I just re-recorded a whole new course. And every 3 years, I re-record the same course over again for free for the same members. That's why I call it a platform, because I just kind of get the concept to be explained better on and on and on.
I got it. So with exotic car hacks, let's take a look at that one. That's one of the cool ones that I really like is exotic car hacks. So if we take a look at that and we kind of break it down in where it's at now. So it started did you say 6 years ago? Exotic car hacks?
Exotic car hacks as kind of the concept that I brought online started about 6 years ago, but about 3 years now that it's its own platform called Exotic Car Hacks.
Okay, got it. And what I also love about it, just as a side note, as we kind of dive into it, I love the simplicity of everything about it. Like if I go to exoticcarhacks.com, it is very clear what's going on there, right? And it's funny because some people, it's not very clear when you go to their site or what's going on. There's only a couple things you could do. There's not a lot of options. You sign up for the webinar. There's a lot of different things going on. I love the simplicity of it. And I'm sure we'll get into the marketing here, but let's talk about just give context here for the actual course and the platform itself. So, and I like that you said that you re-record it too every 3 years. So when you purchase Exotic Car Hacks, let's work backwards here. When you purchase Exotic Car Hacks, the actual program, what do you get?
So you get access to our 5 hours of live updated content, which is me pretty much talking and screen sharing kind of the concept itself. You get access to, literally, I'm not joking when I say this, the world's best buyer's guides on like most makes and models that are very popular in the exotic car world. And those are updated once a month, meaning a new one is introduced each and every month. You also get access to our community of now close to 5,000 members who are all exotic car owners and hackers. In addition to that, you also get access to my case studies, which show my own cars, like what I've done, what I've lost, what I've made, and all of these things. And finally, you also get access to what I call our resource center, which enables you to seek help from us in the process.
Okay, got it. So it's a nice, and it's a great platform here for folks as well. Now, when you say live record, you mean that you recorded them live, or what do you mean by that when you say that?
They're not just like meaning they were all like a real person speaking,
I got you, versus a robot or any kind of scary person.
Meaning, or like just screen share. A lot of people just do screen share throughout their entire videos,
Oh, I got it. So you're actually on camera, and then you
yes, I do a lot of high production like videos, so that way it looks and fits the brand model of really giving the essence of what we're trying to portray as a brand.
I love it. Now, did you view that as being important to get to that high production level for your course?
Well, I'm a big believer in design when it comes to, I'm very OCD about everything. And design is one of those things. Like if you look at all my exotic cars, my house, everything is like beyond, like every detail is there. So I'm very detail driven. And I believe that when things are beautiful, they're consumed with higher regard than when things look like crap.
I 100% agree with you on that one. I'm in the same boat because I actually feel like that's been a big shift in a great way in the online world of online courses and platforms and things like that, because you know this, I mean, way back in the day, because you've been at this for a long time. So have I. I've been in this business for 10 years. But if you go way back in the day, a lot of things look like crap. Some things still look like, some look like crap today, but I'm saying in the back in the day, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
100%. All of those crappy funnels and copy sales letters that were long with a ton of writing. And
yellow highlighter and air. I mean, it was horrible. Horrible.
Yeah. And I think today it's so great to see that the ones that are differentiated are the ones that don't look at just selling a product anymore, but understand they've built a culture, a community, and a shift in design towards their business. So everything they do has to like they're invested in the product. Unlike before where affiliate marketers would come in and take a product and be like, I'm selling this just by writing copy. Today, the ones selling the most are the ones that are creating, not really affiliating anymore. And they're the ones that are actually creating beauty around the product to enable people to understand that it's more than just you're buying a CD here.
Right, exactly. When you come in, when you look at your site, when you look at my site, when you look at there's a look and feel that's going to evict some kind of emotion or, hey, I like this, I don't like this, whether it's conscious or subconscious when you look at something like that. And it's interesting, like when I didn't know you, we haven't met, right? This is our first time talking, but I've seen your site and I liked it, right? Like I can't exactly explain why or why not. I mean, obviously I like the subject matter, but I go there, I'm like, oh, this looks cool. Like there's been thought put into this, like, you know, whatever it might be. And I always tell people too, even if you're starting out, if you're at those beginning stages of building your platform, building your courses and things like that, I mean, that's why looks matter a lot. Obviously, you have to back it up with what you're doing and your knowledge and what you're selling and how you're helping people get results, right? But at the end of the day, that, anyone that says that the impression doesn't lie on design doesn't matter, is lying.
Yeah, and we have competitors now in the space, and one of the reasons why we take like massive steps forward compared to them is because a lot of our site's design is built off of authentic photography. And I think that's where the differentiator is. Like I'm teaching people how to get in and out of exotic cars, but I own my own fleet of exotic cars. And I think that's portrayed through imagery that is authentic and high quality of photography based. And I think that's what differentiates the fact that it's not just a product. It's a glimpse inside my life indirectly, if that makes sense. And that creates a huge amount of additional trust over just saying like, hey guys, learn how to buy this Lamborghini and sell it, but I've never owned one, or I don't have any records of me doing this 45 times to give you context that I've experienced doing this,
Yeah, I get it, because I think we do deal with that a lot online. It's that it's not imposter syndrome, which is people worrying that they don't know not or they can't fit in. It's literally imposters, right? People that haven't done or haven't taught what they're teaching. Right.
Right. But they saw the value because they saw me and they're like, wait, he's making money doing this. So I can just come up with a similar course.
Yeah. They're opportunists. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
and that's
exactly.
what I see too. And I see
okay,
that.
But what happens is they'll find another opportunity soon enough because they'll realize that the world doesn't give a shit.
Right. Because I've seen that kind of bubble starting to happen in my industry, because I've been teaching online courses going back to 2013, been doing online courses since 2010, right? And personally have done now closing in on 10 million in online courses, right? In sales personally, right? And it's interesting. And also now 5,000 students. And it's interesting that I see a lot of competitors popping up now all the time. Some are great. Some know what they're talking about. Some not so much. But it's interesting seeing that the opportunists are moving out because they're on to the next shiny red ball.
Right. And that's the way it works, right? They find an ocean and they jump in it. When it's too red that it requires skills, they move on, because they're being killed by people who are actually good at what they do.
Exactly. And the people that are in this for the long term, like yourself and me and thousands of people listening to this, like that's going to be the key to success, is being in this game long term, not thinking, oh, this is like some kind of cash grab and I run out into the distance. I mean, it's just not going to work. It's not going to be sustainable. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that too. I mean, it's really interesting how these conversations take fun turns for sure. So thank you for sharing that. So real quick back on exotic car hacks as well, because I love kind of deep diving on like a very specific brand that you've built. And this is so cool in terms of, first of all, how much is the program?
Oh, well, the program is listed at $997 for its core entry product, and then we often discount it through the webinar at 50%.
Okay, and has that been a successful method for you?
Extremely, for the last 6 years across all platforms.
Now, did it ever? So a couple questions on this, because people love. I'm telling you, my community, we love talking about numbers and pricing. I mean, people are like, I'm telling you right now, people are in their cars like, oh yeah, here we go, talking numbers and pricing. Let's talk about that for a second. So, did you ever sell it at that higher price, or is that kind of been like the decoy or the anchor pricing, and then it's like you get the special deal?
No, we've sold it actually at $9.97 too. People have paid for it. They used to pay with the payment plan for it. I didn't like that very much. I'm not a fan of payment plans, and I'm not a fan of monthly residuals. And I know that sounds weird because most people are. Well, because they don't last. And what happens is you see, like, you lose the customer. And to me, the value of a customer is not built on exotic car hacks. It's built on the fact that I have 3 platforms that can cross-pollinate plus another 6 launching this year.
Oh, interesting. So you have so you're saying that you'd rather have someone come in, pay a larger one-time fee up front, right?
So I guarantee I captured them right then and there.
Right. And then you're going to have options like, hey, you know what? You like exotic cars. You might also like watches.
Well, correct. But I also have upsells in exotic car hacks, and I have subscription models for the recurring side of things, but not the membership.
Okay. So what are the upsells?
So there's an exotic car hacks part 2.
Oh, interesting. So is that only after you finish part, like
correct.
You did?
You don't need it to kind of get the gist of the content. What you need it for are specifics like tax loopholes, modifications to cars, buying brand new cars and getting allocations and brokering. So depending on the depth of which you want to learn the car industry, that's the next wave. And that's a $2,000 product that's often discounted to $997.
Okay. And now let's say I purchase exotic car hacks. I'm going through the program. How do I get introduced to that upsell?
You either get introduced through like a email funnel, or you get our resource specialist to schedule a one-on-one call with you.
Okay. Interesting. What's a resource specialist?
We have it's my sales team.
Okay. Very cool. So you got that. So I got it. So there's other opportunities after you get into it. Now,
right. And then you also have the opportunity to join my newsletter, which is $19 a month. That gives you access to top 10 cars for sale in the country that I handpick and send to your inbox. Then you get to join my masterminds, where it's me discussing the car market weekly and those 10 picks and why they were picked. And that's $97 a month.
Got it. So there's different opportunities. But you know what I like about it, though, is it's not the old school sketchy internet marketing opportunities where it's you buy something and you get bombed with 50 things right away, or the case where they kind of like they'll sell something to you, but it's incomplete.
No, yeah. Each program is very complete.
Right, because it just seems like it's further learning or the next step, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've separated it in a way where we know most people won't modify their Ferraris, and we know a lot of people may just want to buy their one car and be done with it, you know? And for that, they have Exotic Car Hacks Part 1. But Part 2 is a more in-depth look for people that do what I do. I mean, I own 6 different cars each year, and I swap out, you know, constantly because I'm bored. When you want to do that, you need extensive knowledge to be able to continuously not lose money, you know? There is different strategies that go in play than the one guy that buys one car every 3 years and is like, okay, I have my Ferrari. I'll get bored in 3 years. I'll buy a Lamborghini. Now,
did you, when you have these kind of additional offers, let's just call them, or upsells and cross sells and things like that, did you basically start with the core and then add those over time?
So yes and no. I started with the core, but remember, I had the core before. This was just an enhanced move the core to its own platform, right?
So this was like part of Secret Entourage, then you moved it over?
Well, not really. The core idea started as an ebook on Secret, you know, and it was validated then, and then it kind of blew into this huge, you know, like platform on its own, you know? So, you know, once that happened, I already had a lot of the knowledge from Secret Entourage to be like, well, yeah, I have this knowledge. I'm just going to apply it here from the beginning, that we need some type of upsell, cross-sell. You know, we need relevant things that people are going to want that aren't required, but they're going to want. Because I adhere to people's wants, not needs. I believe that their needs need to be met with the first product, but their wants are what I sell to on the second, third, and fourth product.
Okay, that makes sense. And now, when you're developing these other things or when you develop these to add on and different things like that, did you do it from a place of, you know what, I just know people need this because I know this industry so well, I know what's going on, or was it also were people asking for it? Was there things like in the Facebook group, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm very active in all of the communities I manage. Don't ask me how I spend so much time in like all of them, but I do. And so as a result of it, I really pay attention to what people struggle with. So when I felt like people struggled with, well, I have all this information, but I'm really unclear about what car to buy. Then I said, well, wait a minute. Well, let's just send them the right cars in their inbox and let's make it cheap enough so it's a no-brainer to get it. Then, when people said, okay, I got the car I want, but I'm still scared. Okay, well, let's give them a way to use our resource center to hire us to help them do it. So they know someone's got their back doing it. And let's make it cheap enough so that it's not intruding to the dollar they're going to spend on the car. And so all of these things continuously, one thing after another just adds to itself, and then you start realizing and connecting the map to the site, if that makes sense, after one or two of these things are exposed, and you make changes as you go, like we've launched this and then realized like, wow, like 19 a month is great, but people still don't get the context of this newsletter we send out. So maybe we need a more like in-depth mastermind group for people that do want to hear about cars on an ongoing basis, So, we kind of fill the gaps in between, but the core map is what gets created by just paying attention to people using the system and where their basic or the most, not complaints, but the most struggle still remains despite the teaching. And I think this is important because I come from a place of teaching, not from a place of marketing. And I think that's what gives me a competitive advantage. You see, because my skill, my talent is not marketing. My talent is teaching. So I actually genuinely care that people learn the concept, So for me, it's so important to pay attention to students who are like, hey, I've gone through this and I still don't get that part. And then if I hear that over and over, then I care. I actually want to go back and say, why don't you guys get this? Because to me, it makes sense. I'm watching this video and I'm like, yeah, this is extremely clear. But then I realize, oh crap, I forgot to give this context here. So people aren't really getting this part because they don't know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, and that's what separates you from a lot of people out there. I mean, because we always talk about this in my program is that, listen, if you're not coming from a place that you want to help people get results, this is not for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what differentiates a marketer that looks for the next shiny object versus the guy that, makes this kind of a life brand for the next 10 years.
Right. And marketing becomes a skill needed to obviously spread the message and build the business and bring in the right people. But you have to come from that place of, I 100% agree with you. I mean, you have to come from that place of like, listen, like, I really want to teach this. I really want to help people get results. I'm going to pay attention and see, oh my God, you know what? I could have taught this better, or this is something I could have added on. And oh my God, there's a gap here that, I can fill with either an additional training or something ongoing or whatever it might be, because that's the key to the long-term success. And you're right. It's the people that come in like, oh, I'm just going to create this once and kind of mail it in. And then I'm going to focus on this really over the top crazy marketing and that's it. And I'm going to move on my next thing. I mean, the next thing they're gone in 9 months. Do you know what I mean? And so that's exactly the point on that. Now, real quick, one last thing on pricing too. And by the way, you don't have to give me exact numbers, whatever you feel comfortable with, but with Exotic Car Hacks, which has now been around for 6 years, how much revenue does that generate, or how much does it generate or give or take on a year now?
Like almost 5.
5 a year?
Yeah, 5 a year, a little bit short of 5 a year.
Awesome. Now, with that pricing, because I know this, we have a lot.
But also, hold on, to give context of revenue so people understand, I have now a total of 3 platforms, right? The best one is my watch one that does a little bit over 5. And this next year, it's going to almost do 10 if everything stays on point. This platforms share resources. So when I say a platform makes 5 million, it doesn't have any expenses at all except for ads. And our ad spend is usually less than 5% of our revenue. So I want people to understand that once you build a system and not just a one-time marketing product, you're able to recycle the resources and customers. So you don't need to rely on heavy marketing spends to make a dent You don't need to rely on spending 3 times the front entry product cost to get people in the door and then upsell them. You can make a profit on every single transaction above 80% of the revenue being profit.
Beautiful. And that's crazy. I mean, those are just some unbelievable numbers. I mean, I hate to ask such a broad question, but what do you think has been the key to that success? Because I know a lot of people get stuck at far lower numbers than that, right? I mean, and whatever their topic might be. I mean, do you think I mean, if you could point to a few things that you think you've done really well, what do you think they are?
The most important one, I think, is, again, incredible design and incredible photography, I think, has been a huge part of that. The second piece that I think has been my greatest strength over a lot of other marketers is I don't rely on the online space to fuel my customer base. I rely on the offline space that is on social media. And those are completely different customers that marketers don't seem to understand. Okay, so a lot of marketers break down their marketing into like, okay, so I'm going to market to you through SEO, I'm going to market to you through Google ads and all of these things, right? And collectively, they have this marketing budget where they're trying to bring in customers from everywhere. I look more towards who are the people that are not so online, that are not so exposed to all these courses and everything else. And where are they offline, right? Which is like they're at car shows, they're in places, that's great. But those people may not be online using Google every day, but they're on social media every day. And so I make sure that I'm in front of them on social before I'm in front of them online.
Oh, it's interesting. So you're saying that, like, you're talking about like Facebook advertising and things like that?
No, I'm talking about an actual brand and channel that people want to follow on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook, not just advertising. And that's the key difference. You see, I built a lot of content around my brands that is non-advertising related. So people follow us just because they want to hear more, right? And then it gives us a free marketing channel organically because our brands have such high followership on channels like Instagram and everything organically, not just through targeting.
Mm-hmm. Now, so you're saying, let's see if I get this right, just make sure I understand, is that, let's say, Joe is sitting around, you're saying that this person might not accidentally find you per se, but is going to find you via content potentially. So it may be on YouTube, it might be a blog post, it might be something like that where they can find you. Now they're in your world a little bit. And you know what? They might not sign up for a webinar or see something else, but they might follow you a little bit. Now they might get retargeted on Facebook. Now they might see some ads for your webinar or your next training, but they found you through your content. Is that kind of what you're talking about there?
Yes, exactly. And the content is very organically created, not to market, but just because we're true car lovers.
Mm-hmm. So it's educational, it's fun, it's different stuff, and it's on there, and it's like, hey, listen, and then we're going to invite you maybe to a training or something like that.
Yeah, over time. So you build the trust through really great content,
Mm-hmm. Now, you said that there was no kind of method to the madness. So is the content just, do you put it out on a regular basis, or is it a case of like whenever you feel like it, or what's kind of the strategy there for you?
So it's funny you asked that, because in the past I used to do it on an ongoing basis, right? I was like, expect to get this content on Tuesday and Thursday kind of thing. And now I don't do that anymore. I put content whenever I feel like it. So I force people to keep checking in for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think people getting started, though, do you think that would serve them well to be on more of a regular schedule?
Well, they automatically are, because there's a lot of backdated content anyways.
Right. But I'm saying someone, let's say someone's starting a brand from scratch right now. They're going to be a course creator. They're going to be a platform creator. They're going to do something. They're going to do whatever the topic might be, right? Let's call it, baby sleep training, right? So we just had someone on that was baby sleep trainer, one of my most successful students. That's on my brain, baby sleep training, also with 2 small children. And they're going to they're going to do some free content as they're going to start to kind of build their platform and do things like that. Do you think when someone like that gets started, they're going to do this baby sleep training content, they should be on kind of a regular schedule when they're getting going?
Yeah. They should drive content every day at the beginning, But I think once you become an authority in the space, you have more leverage to kind of understand that when you speak, people listen, even if you don't speak for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that's a great method. So the keys that you've seen to your success, just to recap, you were just talking about the content was one of them in terms of, and also marketing to people in different ways. So people finding you kind of online versus you just pushing all the time.
Yeah. And I think the big piece to that is the authenticity, because in order to be able to create such content, you have to create content from experience. And that's the big differentiator to the success of our brand. Like, yeah, I mean, you want to laugh, to our watch trading course, like, which is just teaching people how to become a watch trader and trade timepieces. I have a ton of students. I have a bunch of them making over 100K a year, like trading pieces, learn from the course. And that has even more upsells. It's even more expensive to join. But you know what the beauty of it is? I am still the number one trader in that community. And I've netted $800,000 this year just trading my own watches, only to make it a point that it's possible. And this authenticity is so contagious, because I post my numbers, I show people the trades I'm doing, so that there's so much clarity. The same way as I show my contracts on cars I get, so that people can see that I'm not just like, oh yeah, I got such a great deal on this, but I don't want to tell you what that was, Oh my God, I didn't lose money. No. It's like, here are the dollars, guys. Like, look at this. This is the reality of the situation. Like, people are seeing me write 200K checks for cars. They're seeing me walk in a dealership and like literally do a finance contract, because some cars I encourage people to finance and I show them how, and they see me do it too, So it's not just talking about what's possible. It's showing what's possible and not being afraid to being vulnerable on camera. And I think this is the big difference between marketers and real brand builders, is that brand builders aren't afraid of what they are and aren't afraid to show vulnerability, versus marketers create a fake image. They try to save and portray that image over time. And once they get big enough, then the mass public kind of discovers the real image and decides to push the person into another product,
Yeah, you're leading by example, number one, by showing what you're doing. And exactly, number two, it's interesting that we've talked about that. There's been being able to show failures, being able to show the human side. I mean, that's something that's so important. I actually had someone the other day link an article. I didn't even know about that, because I did an episode about things that we've tried that were massively successful. And I did an episode about things that we tried that were horrible failures, right? And what was interesting is that you get the feedback. People love hearing about the failures.
Well, because all they hear about all day is the success. And I mean, remember, at the end of the day, people want to relate. And that's where I say authenticity comes in. And this has also been one of the competitive advantages for me in this space, is that it's very hard for competitors to come into my space, because for marketers to really put a dent into what I'm doing, they need to have enough money and knowledge about the space to be able to spend millions of dollars on cars,
Yeah, which is interesting and pretty unique to your space as well.
Exactly. And it's a very difficult space to penetrate for people, because if a cartoon comes in, I call them cartoons for those of you that don't know.
That's why I see what you did there. I got it.
Yeah, so they're cartoon characters. But when they come into the space and they don't have any money and they're like, oh, look, I bought my first old Lamborghini. Okay, but so what? Like 7,000 people have one, But not a lot of people have $2 million in cars in the garage and the skills to market and the knowledge about the industry, so they're not just consumers of it, to put all the three together and say, I'm going to spend time and build this complete model and system for people to have.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, real quick, back on a question on pricing too. This hangs up a lot of my students, and I'm just curious about getting a different perspective. I love bringing people on this show to give a different perspective, because you know what? People probably get sick of hearing about me all the time, my advice, right? It's fun hearing, bringing on someone else to hear about yours as well. So a lot of people get stuck with the pricing of their course and realize that this is all contextual, obviously, because pricing, markets are different. Topics are different. We've got a variety of different people that do all kinds of different things. So I'm curious, from your perspective, when you were thinking how you're going to price out your front end courses, in this case, let's talk, watch conspiracy, exotic car hacks. And I know it's more than a course, but I'm just saying, just that initial offer that you're going to either see on the webinar or whatever you're going to see, or through a special deal, is how did you think about that pricing? How would you do that? Because I think hearing from someone that's done it will hopefully shed some light on people that are really struggling right now to figure out what their pricing should be.
Well, so for me, it's what I call the shared pricing model, and all of my courses start the same way. I intro all of my courses, no matter how extensive, beautiful, long, large they are, at $97, no matter what. I always do that for a couple of reasons. It gives me early adopters that allow me to get feedback. It also gets me a community that's going to start getting busy because more people are going to come in at that dollar than thousands of dollars right up front. And the other thing it also does is it allows me the power to be like, okay, as I expand this community, as I build these new channels of like case studies, this, and that, which then make the platform worth $1,000, then these people are more patient towards this growth that we're having together. And their expectations are not overly high of what they're expecting to begin with based on their previous cognition of other courses they bought for similar dollars. Because most people who have bought a $97 course know it's complete crap. So when they come into a $97 platform like ours, they're like, you got to be joking. Like, this is like $5,000 worth of shit. And then what ends up happening is as we grow, I raise the price. And this model has enabled me not only to grow communities and diversify the communities, but it's also given me an opportunity to have more volume, and volume that over time gives earlier buy-in to new products and everything else.
So wow, this is really interesting. So when you come out with the 97, so first of all, I mean, I guess the answer is probably no to this. Some people would argue and say, you know what, that when you come out with that lower amount and people join, they're not going to be serious because they're paying such an inexpensive amount.
That's true, 100%.
Okay, so that doesn't affect anything. You're just saying you're still getting people in.
Yeah, I don't really care if they're serious or not at the beginning.
Okay, got it. And so you came with this lower price. How do you do that? When you have an initial offer, do you have for example, when you come out with the new thing and it's going to be, you're going to raise it over time and you're going to build it over time. Let's say it's the first exotic car hacks, the first watch conspiracy, whatever it is. Do you just say, okay, hey, listen, for 5 days, you can get it for 97, or how did you do that?
No, I just say get a lifetime membership for $97.
Right, but I'm saying, did you have a limited time then?
Oh, no, I do that for like 6 months.
Okay, so literally 6 months, people could get in at this like ridiculous pricing.
Yeah, and what's funny is as we go on, like the years go on and people see the progression, right? And I'll still get messages on my ads. They're like, I should have joined when it was $97,
That's interesting. And then where did you go from 97? Did you go then all the way $997, or did you just
No, $997, $297, $497, $997, and if warranted, $1997.
And when you kind of raised that, was it just kind of on a whim? Did you just to say like,
we do one final sale and we say this is your last chance to get in. We've added these components and the price is $297. So this is your final weekend to get in at $97. Then we close that forever.
Got it. And so that whole price raise from, let's say, for the initial 97, and then let's just use Exotic Car Hacks, which is now at $997, but you can get a discount. Over what period of time did you go from that to kind of quote unquote full price?
Whenever the components are ready. So, the course launches 97, then the buyer's guides start adding up to a good like 10 in there. Then the community starts thriving with 800 plus people, like people are talking, it's busy. Okay, price goes up to $297.
Okay, interesting. I love that. It's a really interesting model of doing it as well. And did you find a sweet spot now that with your pricing for your particular course and then offering that discount off?
Right. Then we realized like, okay, at $497, we sold, let's say 45 units a week. At $997, we only sell 20. I'd rather have 45 members than 20. So same money anyways. So bring them in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk. I know again, you're not your favorite thing in the world. It's not necessarily marketing, but this is also very important because I love people learning about this as well that are listening to this. In terms of how you get someone from let's say a browser to a buyer, it seems that an automated webinar is your bread and butter. Is that true?
No, content is, but for the most part, the webinar is also a strong way to get people to get introduced to this thing we do because it's very abstract and people don't understand it. I mean, you're telling people drive an exotic car for free. They're like, what kind of scam is this? So they don't understand that. So the webinar is more of an educational tool to be like, well, this is a financial product more than it's a car product. You just need to understand the way it works. And then people are like, yeah, this makes sense. So I'm just going to join to see what it's about. But I think that, that marketing that's like, hey, get a car for free drives the lead. And I think that's the important part is to understand. You see, I separate marketing from conversions and everything else. To me, front-end marketing is only supposed to drive a click. Then the webinar is supposed to kind of curate an idea in someone's head. And then the pitch needs to make it very simple for someone to explore that idea in their head. So at all times, I'm always tweaking based on these three principles only. I never mix the funnel as one giant funnel.
Mm-hmm. Now, can people always enroll for it, or is it a case of, they have to see an offer on a webinar or through email or something like that?
I hated the scarcity model of we're closing our doors, join now,
So you can join anytime.
You can join anytime. I felt that the pricing is where the scarcity is.
Meaning in terms of,
if you don't join now, it's going to go back to $9.97 kind of thing.
Right. Got it. And that's been effective for you?
Extremely.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've seen, one of the things, and I'm sure you've experienced this too. I mean, you've been doing these particular platforms for 6 years, business obviously for far longer than that. There's definitely been some shifts in the course industry and in the platform industry over not only the last 6 years, but I would say major ones in the last 2 as well, even the last 1. We're continuing to see the market evolve, change, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what's working, what's not working. What are some shifts that you've seen? Have you seen any shifts?
I think I don't like to actually even pay attention to that. Partly because I'm a big believer that if we start thinking in the context of our industries, then that's when we lose the most. And what I mean by that is we built into the limitations of other people's inabilities. So in other words, if the marketing industry says this doesn't work, well, I don't really give a crap because it still works for me. So, I don't really care that Russell Branson's funnel said blah, 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 and that to him, this is the market.
He's so important to you that you called him Russell Branson. So who cares, right?
Well, right. But exactly. Whatever. I don't really care. But what I'm saying is to me is the big thing is that if I look at a product, I never go into an ocean that's red because I want to be in that ocean because there is money to be made. I go into an industry because I have the expertise and the experience to teach it. So there's a very different model, right, than the marketer model. So why would I want to ever follow what marketers are doing, right? The other segment too is that I believe that I can put a dent in my own industry by bringing this element of marketing to it that previously didn't exist. Nobody was doing this car thing before I started it. And nobody is doing the watch thing now. So what I'm saying is I am in a unique space because of my expertise, capacity, and what I do. And I can take a lot of these marketing components, even if they're 10 years old, and bring them into this space because this space has never seen them. So I'm not targeting the same guy that's buying e-commerce courses, right? And that's where the difference is. So that's why I'm a big believer in building brands and not building courses. So I'm a huge believer that, even if there are shifts in the market, they are applicable absolutely to some degree, but they're also not as applicable to me, and they don't need to become part of my own limited thinking because things are shifting. I believe in raw numbers and raw dollars. If something is converting and driving in dollars that are positive and making money with every sale, then it needs to keep happening, and new ways need to continuously be introduced in the industry over and over to drive more dollars in the door. I think that's the only recipe I look at for what needs to change and what doesn't.
That's a very fascinating perspective on it, and that makes sense. You're saying, hey, I don't care if anyone else is saying this. This is what's working for me, right? This is what's working for me. This is not what's working for me, and that makes perfect sense. Versus, yeah, I love this kind of undertone of this entire conversation as we wrap up here in a couple minutes about that. Yeah, you don't need to be following, what the quote unquote marketers are doing that are jumping around from this to that. You don't need to be following this. You need to be focusing on the brand, the context, your unique expertise and what you bring to the table. All these things are going to trump basically everything else that other little scammy crap that people are trying, which you don't want to be trying anyway, obviously. Is there any new things that you've seen? And I know new can be a dangerous word because a lot of times new is a distraction. A lot of times new could be a shiny red ball. But have you seen anything new that has been, working well for you, whether it's customer acquisition or more sales or anything like that has been kind of new on the horizon that's worked well for you?
When you say new, what do you mean? You mean in terms
Well,
of...
you mentioned kind of at the end of your story there about where you guys differentiate, what you're doing. You're saying that you're paying attention to kind of like whether it's a new thing. I'm not talking, it could be tactically, it could be strategically, it could be something like, this is something bringing in more customers now, like YouTube that we've never thought about before or whatever it might be. Have you seen anything that's been new over the last couple of years that's done some great things for you?
No, yeah, I feel like YouTube is like the new marketing place that people haven't figured out that well yet. And I think that's going to be, I know it's already popular, like I understand that, but I haven't seen the leverage of YouTube from a transition standpoint be as effective as it can be compared to an Instagram or Facebook. And what I mean by that is Facebook and Instagram are direct feeder of traffic and conversions. But for me, anyways, with all the work we put on YouTube and all the people I know doing YouTube, I feel like that's a place where no one's really correctly figured out how to transition that user outside of entertainment into an action they desire. So a lot of the things people sell on YouTube aren't directly related to what they're doing. And we've tried to break that cycle 100 times and it hasn't worked either, like meaning we still have to figure it out better. So we have a lot of subscribers, we have a lot of views, but it doesn't always translate to a direct customer, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It's still its infancy. We've had actually a lot of customers of mine that have had success with it that we're actually doing some sessions on coming up, but it's definitely a little bit of wild, wild west right now when it comes to, acquisition and how that's, are people just on there to just be entertained, or can we actually turn this person into an eventual customer, et cetera? So
right, exactly. And it's a very bizarre model. And I think partly it's because we underestimate how young the audience on YouTube is. I think we think that YouTube people are just like everybody, but I don't think we realize that like 80% of YouTube are just like kids that are like using YouTube as TV.
Right. And I think, and I got to tell you right now, from a personal perspective, and maybe I'm not the target for people or whatever, certain people, but I've definitely purchased things that I learned about on YouTube. Like, for example, like I'm big into like fitness, for example. I remember years ago, I was, browsing YouTube videos. I found a guy that I liked. I followed his workouts. I like watching the videos. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to check out his website. Next thing I know, I'm buying a program. And next thing I know, I bought like 3 programs. You know what I mean?
Right. So see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The cycle time is much longer.
Yes, it wasn't overnight. It wasn't in a week.
And what ends up happening is it's not always direct, meaning you had to follow the guy to then go check out his site. You didn't necessarily click his site directly from the first video you watched.
Right. Yeah, I think, right. Even though it was in the description, it was like, yeah, I think later on. Then I was like, okay, I'll go look at it.
You Google the guy and you find him and you're like, okay, this is the guy. I need to follow him or buy stuff.
Right. It was not it wasn't a 24-hour cycle. It wasn't a week cycle. It might not even have been a month.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It seems to be a much different way to market where people expect this huge amount of education and entertainment before they take a plunge, but yet they take the plunge instantly on Instagram.
I love it. I love it. So this is great stuff, Pejman. I appreciate you sharing it so candidly, which I love. Last question on the way out. And by the way, we'll have links to everything in the show notes. You can check out Secret Entourage, Exotic Car Hacks, watch Conspiracy. Next thing you know, Pejman's going to come back with his 3 more platforms or what you're working on. We're going to have so many links. But that's my final question is kind of what's next for you? You mentioned you have some new platforms you're working on, but just curious, like where's your focus and your energy going right now with your business?
So, we're launching we have 6 new platforms in the works. 2 are going to be in the next quarter. The 2 I can tell you are going to be what I call the wealth transfer methodology, something that I've, been the core focus of all of my other work with cars, watches, art, and everything. It's a finance-based product, and it's going to be just kind of rewiring everybody's brain around money, like in terms of assets and money. And that's going to probably come out first quarter this year. And then the other one, which is going to be like kind of a side project to Exotic Car Hacks, focusing primarily on the truck and SUV market.
Okay. Interesting. So go a niche on a niche.
Yep. Like the exotic truck market.
And then are you going to be following, just curious, are you going to be following that model, for example, like having that initial lower fee that people can get in and then raising it over time?
So yes, for the car one, the truck one, we actually believe that it's going to probably be a cheaper product than Exotic Car Hacks in the long run. So maybe something even in the $297 range forever, However, the wealth transfer one is going to come out as a $5,000 product, and it is going to be very, very limited as to who it is for, because it's going to require a higher amount of capital, and it is also going to be a little bit more hands-on with direct work with me. So I'm not going to be expecting to put myself in a position to help, hundreds of thousands of students. So
hence the $5,000 price tag, which in itself will take care of that.
Right. And on the back end, there'll be upsells for as high as $40,000. So it'll be very, very unique to each person's situation,
I love it. Well, best of luck with everything. I'll obviously be keeping a pulse on it. And I'm sure now after this conversation, you're going to have a whole bunch of new people keeping the pulse on everything that you are up to, that they're going to check out. So I appreciate your time. This was a really fascinating conversation. Just hearing someone that, is not a student of mine, not someone that I know, is like bringing on someone that I just found really interesting and coming on and having a chat. So I appreciate you taking the time, and thanks for coming on the show.
You got it, buddy. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that was just, to me, super fascinating. I hope you found that fascinating as well. And feel free to email me. I always want to hear from listeners of the podcast, david@therisetop.com. Let me know how you liked this episode with Pejman. I know I learned a lot. It's a constant learning in the online course world and in the online business world. The day you stop learning, the day you say, you know what, I know everything and I'm just gonna, whatever, that's the day where things start to fall apart. So I hope you enjoyed some different perspectives on here, and, also showing you there's not just one way to build an online course business and brand. There's many different ways, and bringing in sometimes the outside perspectives, it just will spark ideas and inspiration in you as well. So on the way out, a couple of reminders. Reminder that if you haven't already, come on now, you want to subscribe up to the Rise to the Top podcast at therisetop.com/subscribe, where you can find out all the cool ways, including iTunes. In fact, you can go directly to iTunes at therisetop.com/iTunes. And finally, on the way out, if you're sitting there and thinking, oh, my goodness gracious, I've been putting this off for a long time. I want to learn how to create, promote, and profit from my own online course. And I also want a supportive community where I can bounce questions off of and have experts like myself and my team in there helping you all the way from start to finish to create, promote, and profit from your own online course. You're going to want to join my #1 program, Create Awesome Online Courses. You can find out more details. You can unlock a special offer at createawesomeonlinecourses.com/unlock just for listeners of the Rise to the Top podcast. All right, my friends, I will see you next time. This has been David Siteman Garland. And remember, if you want some fluff, you know what to do. Go pet a bunny.